Okay, so first part of this assignment is a diagram. That means it's just labeling what the parts of the shadow are. The second part is actually drawing the shadows. It's two different parts. Today we're going to work on the diagram part. Tomorrow you're going to do the actual shadow part, okay? So today, let's work on this part. You got the sphere. And with most three-dimensional objects like cubes and pyramid, things like that, the drawing of it has some three-dimension to it. With a sphere, there isn't anything. Without value, without something showing us that it's round, it just looks like a circle. So here's what we need to do to it. It needs a light source. It needs a light coming from a particular direction. If you're working from imagination, you can just pick a light source. Just decide where it's coming from. If you're working from observation, where's your actual light coming from? Right now, my light's coming from the window, so it's bringing light this way and putting shadows on the backside. For this one, let's just decide our light source is up at the side up here. Pretty simple. Your light source, where it's hitting the ball first, it's also going to be the brightest. And that spot is called the highlight. Don't worry, I'll put up a diagram because you probably can't read my writing. That's that spot where the lamplight's hitting it the most. It's this bright, bright, bright white spot. It's probably going to be your whitest white is going to go right there. And that's your highlight, the bright spot. Then in the absolute middle, this is called the terminator. In the video, you saw how they broke down the value scale into lights and shadows. This is the spot where that middle is, where that break between the lights and shadows are. So these are your first six, or your first half of it right here. This is your middle gray, that guy right there. And then it starts going into your darker shades as you go around this way. So it's just getting progressively darker as it goes around here. Now, the first time you do this, it's probably going to be pretty clear where the changes are for you because you're used to doing it from up here. But you want to eventually make that a nice smooth transition. Now, this spot down in here, this is your core shadow. And it's not going to be the darkest spot. It's going to get almost there. It'll probably get to right here before the darkest one, but not totally there. Then this little sliver right here. Now, a mistake I've seen from a lot of people is they think it's this whole backside of the ball. It's not. The core shadow goes around this spot. This is just a little sliver. What this is reflected light. The ball is sitting on a surface. It's sitting on a table. And while the light's hitting the ball and it's creating a shadow underneath it, everywhere around it, the light's still hitting it. And that's reflecting off the table and going back onto the ball. If you want to create a really believable, good shadow on something, a little bit of reflected light deep in your core shadow is the best way to do that. It's a subtle little touch that most people will never notice that actually makes it extremely believable. Remember, just a tiny little sliver. It's not the whole backside. Now, this was our light source up here. The way the light goes is going to go across and hit the edges of the terminator right there and right there. That's where the light's going. And the reason that's important to know is that's going to cast the shadow on the ground. And that shadow we call the cast shadow. That's the one on the ground. This one, much like our grays, is a slow progression outward. It's going to be its absolute darkest right here where the ball and the ground are touching. The least amount of light is getting into that spot. So that's going to be the darkest spot. And then it just gets a little bit lighter as it goes out that way. Remember that the shadow on the ground is reflecting this shape. So it's going to have a curved edge to it because the ball's curved. But if you were, say, drawing a cube or a pyramid or something like that, it's going to have a harsh edge to it because the object does. It's just a reflection of the object is all that shadow is. But that's the parts. Don't worry, I'm going to put up a diagram and an assignment that'll say which parts you need to name. But this is Wednesday's assignment, is get the diagram done. Again, right next to the board, you're going to see a couple pieces of paper that are going to show how this is set up. You got your value scale, and then you got your diagram. Tomorrow, we're going to take this, and on the back side, we're going to do the shaded version of it. Okay? Talk to you then.